Good morning, and welcome everyone to the Contractors Chatter. I'm Luciana Turner. I'm your host for this morning's segment. Just giving everybody a moment to realize I'm live. If you're catching us on YouTube, just hit that like button. And if you want to stay, you know, be notified when I go live, hit the subscribe. If you know somebody who would benefit from this information or find this information useful, send it to them, forward this information. Be a digital, my pastor would say be a digital evangelist, but I don't want to be that provocative. But be a digital reporter. Share this information out to those in your sphere who could use it. I'm Luciana Turner, your host for the LT&A Contractors Chatter. The Chatter program is designed to be that up-level conversation around government contracting. We discuss procurement, appropriations, legislative changes, strategy, and the end all and be all in government contracting. I'm your host. I'm your Chief Compliance Officer and Contracting Strategist. So let's get started. The Biden administration has finally issued guidance to federal agencies and contractors on how to comply with the mandate for the COVID vaccines. Keep in mind, this mandate applies to if you want to do contracting on the federal level. And as I thought, you're going to need to keep copies of the vaccine card. And if you think about it logically, there was just no other way to comply with this regulation. So, as I told my audience and as I told my clients, when this was announced, actually, he announced it 2 months ago before he even wrote the executive order. You should have gotten in touch with your advisory team on how you were going to do this and be compliant, not just with the executive order, but you now have these confidential records that you must keep. Now, I was in a conversation with some HR representatives that discussed storing this data. And there's this new, well, it's not new, but it's being repurposed for the purpose of keeping the COVID cards. And I can't remember the name of the tool, so I'm going to have to go back, talk to this lady. Maybe I'll even bring her on the platform. She's an HR specialist. However, the Biden administration has said contractors must keep a copy of the vaccine cards on hand to be compliant with the mandate. And since that has now been issued as official guidance, there's bound to be an audit step that's going to be issued to check randomly to make sure contractors are following the rules. So with that in mind, for those who are still trying to find ways around it, the federal mandate does not make exceptions for people working off-site. On the state level of contracting, I have seen where the state is saying, if you're not on government site, we don't care. If you are on government site, you have to be vaccinated, test negative, and wear a mask. That's what I'm seeing on the state level. The federal level is saying, we don't care, on-site, off-site, you have to be vaccinated. So that's the latest news from the Biden administration as far as the COVID mandate. Now, the Senate still has not acted on the Defense Policy Bill, better known as the Defense Authorization Act. They intend to do so before December, which we do know is the drop dead date the past funding for the fiscal 2022 year. We're currently operating under a continuing resolution. Now, we've been under continuing resolution since the Obama administration. We have not had an official budget, even though one has been submitted every year. They have chosen to go the route of continuing resolutions for political reasons. Let's just call a spade a spade. It is what it is. The current debate is the debt ceiling. And while the country will pay its bills, I don't know why that's even up for discussion. Like, we're going to default. The defense of this country is a priority to everybody in the House and Senate. Therefore, they will most likely remove defense spending from the overall budget, pass that as a separate measure, then come back and tackle the government full-on budget as a separate piece. The debt ceiling issue, I personally feel, is going to be a compromise. They are going to waive it. They are going to trim some of the fat from the spending bill. I personally, that's what I believe is going to happen. They have waived the debt ceiling in the past. Democrats have told the Republicans, waive it on your own, and they've done that. This time, the Republicans are telling the Democrats to waive it on their own. This is not a political platform. However, politics do play into the whole budget narrative. They're doing a whole lot of grandstanding, but the budget will get passed in whole or in part. Government's going to get funding. Contracts are going to roll out. They're already rolling out. There's an increased level of spending in the civilian sector, which is unusual because usually the defense side of the government sees the most spending. However, with zero trust being adopted in the government on the IT side, you're seeing a great uptick in spending on the civilian side with the whole modernization of the IT infrastructure. And with that said, for those who are spending an inordinate amount of time getting their companies certified, 8A, HubZone, etc., with civilian agencies do not do set-asides. So while I'm not telling you not to get certified, I am telling you those certifications on the civilian side of government do not hold the same power. So if your whole strategy is to get certified and leverage that as a contracting tool, then you need to reevaluate your strategy for the FY 2022 year to include the fact that the spending so far seems to be on the civilian side, which does not do set-asides. That, that just is what it is. Excuse me. I'm a coffeeholic. I'm an apologetic, unrepentant. But this morning I wanted to step into something that I think we often forget to talk about in the conversation around government contracting. And I know a lot of people don't talk about it because quite frankly, they're not really familiar with it. And that is the compliance side of contracting, and that is audit readiness and preparedness. Now, for those who are just joining the room, this is welcome to the LT&A Contractor Chatter, where we discuss all things government contracting. We discuss appropriations and legislation. We keep an eye out for industry trends, changes. We have conversations that are not the standard. We go beyond the where do we find contracts, and we discuss things that have direct and immediate impact on government contractors and the contracting industry. I'm your host, Luciana Turner. I have 20 plus years experience within government contracting, inclusive of nonprofit time. I've spent the majority of those years as a compliance analyst, which means I did interface with DCAA, Department of Labor, and some GAO audit experience. I am currently a government contracting consultant, coach, and trainer, in addition to which I am a government contractor. So I'm out in the trenches bidding on contracts just like you. I am speaking from a wealth of knowledge and experience, not what I've read, but what I've experienced, the conversations. I've sat in the room with contracting officers, I've sat in the room with auditors. I attend the industry events so that I can share that information on my platform with my audience so that they in turn can build contracting strategies that will help them build a compliant, solid foundation that they then can scale and grow the contracting business. That is the Chatter program. So back to my train of thought. We very rarely talk about what it is to be a compliant company. And we very rarely talk about compliance in terms of strategy and scalability. It seems like people are so focused on getting the contract that they forget you can win the contract and lose the award. It is a known industry fact that contractors are often awarded contracts, and those contracts are rescinded or taken away for failure to perform or performing at an inadequate level. So there's more to government contracting than bidding and writing to win. There is the performance component as well. Then when it comes to the audit side that people want to gloss over, and for various reasons, audits are not timely in government contracting. So when the auditor appears, which is why in the RFP, there is language that says you must keep records from 5 years, and people interpret that 5 years incorrectly. It is not 5 years from the RFP. It is 5 years from when that record was created. I repeat, it's not 5 years from the RFP. It's not 5 years from the award. It is 5 years from when that record was created. And that is a minimum. If it takes the government 7 years to audit you, you are still required to provide proof of those costs, of that work. And your argument of, well, it's been 7 years is not an adequate defense at time of audit. It is what it is. So while you're building out your business, and government contracting is a business with your end client being the government, you must keep an eye out for your protocols, your delivery methodologies. How are you handling your resources and allocating those resources across projects? How are you monitoring these things? What are your visions exactly? How are you structured? These are all of the things that you must keep in mind while building out your government contracting business and developing that contracting strategy. So I invite you to schedule a time with me so that we can build out that strategy together. Now, I'm currently updating all of my offerings for the current year, but I'm inviting you to a 15-minute discovery session just so we can see what you need to do and how I can assist you with accomplishing those goals. Because my best interest is seeing how you can scale and grow. Every year, there are contracts that do not get awarded for a variety of reasons. And what happens in those instances is the government either has an unfulfilled request or need, or they then take the need and tack it onto an existing contract. And that occurs on the federal and state level. So why should they have to scramble when you can be the answer that they need? And with that said, I invite you back to join me tomorrow morning at 8:15 a.m. for another installment of the Contractor's Chatter as we do a weekly wrap up and a preview of what we will discuss next week. And I'm invite you to take some time today to review what your current contracting strategy is. And if you really don't have one, I really want you to get on my calendar so we can discuss the best methodology for creating one for you. I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Be strategic. See you tomorrow.